Okay, so this is my Spring Boot REST API project. It's designed to manage articles with the full CRUD functionality, the create, read, update, and delete. So I'm gonna start by creating a post request. This is where I will be creating a article. So I'm gonna give it a title. I'm gonna call it tester. And then the content is just the description of the article. I'll just leave it as dummy, and the publish is true, and I'll execute it. So here we can see we got a 201 response, meaning it was created. Now I'm going to get the ID of this particular article, and then I'll send another GET request to get the ID of this article.
Okay.
So here is the ID, it's ID number 2. So I'm just going to verify the specific ID over here. And here we can see it did return it. Now I'm going to update the article by sending a put request with the given ID. So I'm going to change this to Vogue, and I'll just give it a description of a new Netflix movie. And I'll leave publish as true, and I'm going to execute it. And then we must see the update, so I'm going to check it now with the ID again. And here we can see the changed title and content over there. And then I can also delete the article with the ID, so I'm going to try that out. And I'm going to execute it, and then we have a 204 response, meaning that it was deleted. And just to make sure, I'm going to show you by sending a GET request to see if the article is still there. So you can see we don't have it anymore. And that
Yes.
is it for the front end.
Okay.
So now I'm going to explain the backend code. So here we have the Open API configure file. So this is the configuration file for customizing the Open API, which is the Swagger document. So this class also sets the metadata such as title, version, contact information, and license, and the server URL that will appear in the Swagger UI. Now, here we have the bean that is going to give us all the information basically. Now here we have on line 32 to line 34, this is where we define the server for the Swagger UI and where the API runs. So here on line 32, we have server, localhost server, new server. So this creates a server object representing where the API is hosted. And then here we have local server set URL. So this is just the base URL for the API. And then also the local server set description, local development server. This is just going to show up in the Swagger UI so users know where the request is sent.
Okay.
Here we have the contact information shown in Swagger. So basically this will just define the context person for the API, and also it appears in Swagger for the API metadata. And then over here we have the license information for the API. So basically this just creates a license object with the name and the URL, and it lets the users know under what license the API is distributed. And then here we just have the general API metadata. The title is the API name, the version is the API version, the contact is the contact details, description is the description shown in Swagger, and then obviously the license information. And then lastly, we have our return. So this will just return the customized Open API object. So it creates the final Open API object, and then it attaches the information metadata, and then the list of servers, and that's what just return the bean Spring Boot uses to generate the Swagger UI documents. So this is it for this file. Now moving
Okay.
on, we have our controller. So this is the REST controller for managing the articles, and it also has all the CRUD functionalities. Now we have a bunch of annotations over here that I'm just going to explain. So we have the annotation tag, name, article, description. So this is just the Open API annotation, and it groups the endpoints under the article in Swagger UI. And then we have the REST controller. This just marks the class as a REST controller, and all methods must return a JSON response. And then we have the request mapping. So this is the base URL for all the endpoints. And then lastly, we have the cross-organ locals 8080. So this just allows a cross-organ request to the local host. Now, here we have the annotation auto-wide and private article service. So here we're just injecting the article service bean so the controller can call its method. So this is how the controller connects to the in-memory logic. Now I'm going to use Insomnia to explain all our requests. Let me just okay. So here we have our post request. So this is where we will fill in the JSON format. So here we are. I don't understand why is it doing this. Let me just fix this quickly, Siri.
Yeah. Maybe a server error.
It says the server's used somewhere else. I'm not sure where.
Oh, okay. Do you have maybe another port open on the browser?
It's only my console and the Swagger. I don't understand. I'll just change the server then. Did I declare this properly?
Start your IntelliJ as a whole. Maybe reload it again.
Okay.
I'm not sure why is it saying there's another one running on 8080. So I can't see it. So maybe if stop the IntelliJ as a whole and then maybe rerun it again. And maybe the Google Edge Microsoft Edge also maybe making use of port 8080?
Not sure. It's not.
Okay. So I don't know where exactly is it picking it up.
Looks like it's working now.
Okay, let's test it out. I don't know what the issue was.
Let me just see if it works on Insomnia. I'm just going to send a GET request.
Uh, remember you changed the port to
Mm. But it says it
or is it
started on port 8080.
okay? Okay, it's still using that one.
Okay. Okay, it works.
Okay. Now I don't know what the issue.
Same. Okay, so I'm gonna just use Insomnia to demo.
It's okay.
So here we have the post mapping. So where we will fill in the JSON format, and here we are declaring the method. Let me just do this. How do I make this bigger? Okay. Okay, so here we're declaring the method. We have public response entity article create article request body article. So the annotation request body article tells Spring to deserialize the incoming JSON request body into an article object, and here we have our try block. So
Okay.
we have article saved and article service saved, and return the response entity with the HTTP status. This is just for debugging purposes. So it's going to try and save the incoming article using the service article service save article, and then it calls the service to either create or update the article, and then it's going to save it in the stored results, and then it will return a HTTP status 201 if it was created successfully, and if something does go wrong, it will return a 500 internal error. So I'm going to test that out now. So I'm going to give it a title. I'm just going to say demo, and the content will be project. And then I'll send it now. And as you can see, it was created over here.
Yeah, I can see that.
Okay, so now we have the get mapping. So let me just highlight this. Okay, so here we have public response entity list article, get articles, request param required for string title. So here we have the method that handles the get request that will return all the articles, and we also declare the REST endpoint method which returns the REST entity wrapping the list article and the request param false string title. So this just allows the query parameter, and if a title is not provided, it will be null. Next, we have list articles title equal null. So if the title is null, it will call the article server to find all the articles. Basically, sorry, I'm explaining this. And then if the title is not null, it will call the art service to find the title containing the search by the keyword title and then stores the result in the article. This is for debugging purposes. And then we have another return, articles is empty. So here we have new response entity HTTP status no content. So if the list is empty, return a true or false with no article found. And then here we have new response entity articles HTTP status okay. So if the list has results, return the 200 okay with the list of articles in the response body. So I'm going to send a get request, and we should see it over here.
Okay, go ahead.
And then over here we have the get mapping for the ID. So here we declare the method. Let me just highlight it. Here we declare the method public response entity article get article by ID path variable long ID. So the method will return a response entity article that wraps the article object plus the HTTP status code with the annotation path variable and the ID that binds it from the URL into the ID parameter. And then here we have article servers find by ID. So here it's going to look for the ID and store it in the article. And if no article exists with the ID, the servers will then return null. So here we have the return article not equal to null. So now we're going in the logic. So here we have new response entity article HTTP status okay. So if the article is not null, it will return a 200 okay. And then here we have new response entity HTTP status not found. If the article is null, it will return a 44.
Okay.
What is this? So we know the ID here is 1, so I'm going to send a get request for ID number 1, and it does appear again. So here we have the put request. Let me just highlight this first. So here we're declaring the method, the put request that will update an existing article. So we have the response entity article, update article, annotation path variable, long ID request body article. So it's going to return the response entity article, and then it's going to wrap the updated article in the HTTP status code. And the annotation path variable ID pulls the ID from the URL, request body article, and then it takes a new article from the data from and sends it to the request body, which is the JSON. Over here we have article existing article service find by ID. So this just calls the service to look up the existing article ID. And then we have if existing equal to null, return the response entity HTTP status not found. So it's going to update the existing fields with the new values. If the article is not found with the ID, it will return a 44 immediately. That's what it's basically saying. And then here we have the existing set title, existing set content, and set published. So basically, it's going to update the existing fields with the new values from the request body, and only the properties, which is the title, the content, and the publish, that will be overwritten. And then over here we have article updated article servers dot save existing. So it will just save the updated article back into the servers, and then it will return a new response entity updated HTTP status okay. So it will return a 200 okay. So I'm going to test it now. I'm going to change the title. in the content, and I'm going to leave it as true, and I'm going to send it. And as you can see, it did change over there.
Yeah, that update, yeah.
Okay, and then we have the next request, which is the delete request by a unique ID. So I'm just going to explain this. So here we have the response entity HTTP status delete article path variable long ID. So it's going to return a HTTP status code, and then it's going to bind the ID from the URL in the ID parameter. Next, we have our try block. So article servers delete by ID return the response entity with the HTTP status code. So it will delete the article with the given ID, and the article servers it deletes, it will call the service to remove the article from the in-memory list, and if it's successful, it will return a 204 status code. And then if something does go wrong, our catch block will enter and it will return a status code of 500 if it doesn't work. So I'm going to test it out. So here is my delete request with a given ID over there, and I'm going to send it. And we got a 204 with no content, which it deleted. So now we have our delete all articles. So this will delete all the articles in the system. Here we declaring it. So here we have public response entity HTTP status delete all article. So this will just return the HTTP status code. And then here we have our try block. So here we have article service delete or return new response entity HTTP status code. It will delete the articles by calling the service delete all method, and if it's successful, it will return a 204 status code. And we have our catch block. So if something does go wrong, it will return a 500 status code basically. So I'll just send a delete request for everything. We got a 204 over there.
Okay.
And then lastly, we do have our get request to get all the articles. So here we have public response entity list articles, get publish articles. So it's going to return a response entity with a list of all the articles and the HTTP status code. And then here we have list article publish article service find by publish true. So it's going to call the service layer to fetch all the articles where the publish is true. And then here we have our return is empty. So basically we have the response entity HTTP status no content. So if the list is empty, return a 204. And then we have new response entity publish HTTP status okay. If the list has results, return a 200 okay. So I'm going to send a get request. And here we have a 204 no content. Okay, so that is it for the controller file.
Okay.
So here we have our model. So let me just highlight this over here. So this is the JPA entity representing an article in the system. It's annotated with the annotation entity, so Spring Data JPA can map its database table. And then we have the annotation schema. So this is the Swagger annotation provided by the metadata for the API documentation. And it just contains the basic fields of the ID, the title, and the content and when it was published. Okay, so next we have ID, generated value strategy, generation type, identity, and our schema. So the ID just marks the field as a unique identifier. The generated value is the generation type identity that lets the database auto-generate the IDs. And then we also have the schema, which is the access mode. So this just allows it to be read only, and the description, which is the unique ID of the article. And then we're also using private long ID. So we're just using long instead of the primitive, and long ensures null safety before the persistence. Next, we have the schema for the description, which is just the description, and then we have private string title, which is just the title of the article. And then we have schema description content of articles, and this is just the content of the article. And then we have our schema description publish status of the article and private boolean. So this is the boolean flag indicating whether the article is published or not, which is true or false. And then here we have our constructor. And now we are we declaring out the constructor's body over here. So here we have public article, string title, string content, and string boolean. So this is what the constructor is here to create the article instance. Basically, we have the title, the content, and the publish. Next, we have our getters and setters. So here we have public long get ID, return ID. This will just return the unique ID of the article. Next, we have public string get title. This will just return the article's title. Next, we have the public void set title. This will just set the title of the article. And then we have the public string get content. So this will just return the content of the article. And then we have the public void set content. This will just set the article's content. And then we have the public boolean is published. So this will just return true if the article is published. And now we have the public void set publish boolean. So this is this will just be published whether the article is published or not, basically. And then we have our override method and public string to string. So this is just going to pull and return a string that includes all the key fields, which will be the article, which is the ID that's included in the article, and then the title, which is the article's title, and then the content, which includes the contents of the article's body, and then the publish, whether it is true or false. That is it for the model. And then we have the repository. So the repository interface is for managing the articles entities. It extends Spring Status JPA and the JPA to inherit the common CRUD operations. So basically, this is the custom query method that is also defined here for the Spring query derivation, where we can basically use this method in SQL. Next, we have the list article find title containing the string title. So this is going to find all the articles whose titles contain the given keyword. So I'm going to test it out in the database. And then this is also just Spring's data JPA to interpret the method like the name and how the query should be set. And then also the title is a substring to search for in the article's title, and it will return the list of articles containing that title. So I'm going to send a post request, and then I'm going to test it in the console.
Okay.
So I'm going to send it, and then I'm going to send another one. So there it is. Um, okay. So what we're going to do is find a title containing the string title. So
Okay.
I'm going to run the query. So that's what just find a title containing food. So I go from what did I find? Syntax error.
Yes, maybe the spelling wrong or something.
Let me just see. Right, go from articles. I don't even understand what's going on because it worked earlier.
Did you use the one of the title? Was it maybe did you have it?
Yep.
The
Must we redo this demo?
no, you don't have to redo it. So like select all from
Articles with title.
when you ran it before. Did you use the keywords like when it ran?
Did I use the keywords like? Yeah.
So looking into line 22, did you write it exactly like that?
Let me see if it will work. Still the same error.
We can try to push the
See.
console, or you copy the whole line on line 2 and then you just replace it with UC title.
So I must. Okay. Let me try. Still the same thing.
Okay, it's basically saying that the articles is the one that's not found in the skills table. And then article or articles, I'm not sure which one did you.
It's article. Let me just
Okay,
see.
okay.
Okay, it is.
Yeah, it says the table articles is not found.
Should I put this in quotes maybe?
Yeah, you can try that. Now I'm not sure why is it busy saying your table is not found.
I don't understand.
Because it's complaining about the article. Get the say this articles is not found at all.
Let me see if I run my table. But it found this. I don't understand.
Yeah, because it's complaining. Remember now you're making use of articles and it said the table articles. Remember you had the S.
Mm-hmm. So let me
Yeah.
try again.
Because here you're using articles. And it says syntax error. Click on that error so you can see where it takes us.
Click on where?
Oh, yeah, it says it's not found because yeah, the article and the way, if you notice, it's one word. Article way. Yeah, it's a word there. Okay, let's see, what did they say? Click
Syntax
on that.
error.
Yeah, click there. Let's see why it's saying it's not found. Okay. Yeah.
I still don't understand why.
Just gonna have a look. See. I don't think columns will cause an error, but we have put them in single quotes. We tried that. We removed the columns. We already did that, right?
Mm-hmm.
We haven't. Yeah, just try putting single quotes again, just to see.
Okay.
Because it's complaining about a syntax error. See if you run it again. Will it get it? What's happening? Did it run?
It's ran.
Okay.
What?
So we did words before we still had the columns. I didn't pay attention.
Yeah, we still have the columns.
I didn't see that. I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine.
Because I was going through your code step by step now. Ugh. And I just thought about the quotes, but I said we did put the quote.
It must have
Okay,
been
maybe I didn't.
misspelling somewhere.
Maybe I see it. I didn't see the columns. I'm so sorry for not catching that on time.
No, it's fine. Do I still continue?
You don't have to stop.
Okay. So yeah, we got the title after a very long debugging session. And then over here we have list articles find by publish, boolean publish. So this will just find all the articles filtered by their published status. So let us try that out. Hopefully it works. So I'm going to test whether publish is true. So select all from article. Let me just delete this. Alright, so that it shows it over here. This is the article that is published as true. And then we can also search for the one that's published as false. And here we can see the one that's published as false. So that's it for the repository.
Right?
And then we have the article service. Now, the service is the layer for managing the article entities. So let me just highlight this. So it's going to act as a bridge between the controller and the repository. And then it also delegates the persistence operations in the article repository. And then over here, we have AutoWired private article repository. This is just the injected article repository instance. And the AutoWired lets Spring automatically provide the repository bean, and the repository handles all the database operations for article entities. Here we have the public list article find all, return article repository to find all. This will just retrieve all the articles from the database, and it will return the list of all the article records. And then here we have public list article find title containing string title, and then return the article repository. So this is just going to find all the articles. The titles contain the given keyword, and it will return the list of matching articles. And then over here we have public article find by ID long ID, and then return the article repository find by ID or else null. So this is going to find a single article by its ID, and then it will return the article if it is found, otherwise it will be null. And then over here we have public article save article, and then return article repository save article. This will save a new article or update an existing one, and it will return the saved article with the generated ID for the new records. Then we have the public void delete by ID, long ID article repository delete by ID. This will just delete the article by its ID. And then here we have public void delete all. This will just delete all the articles from the database. And then lastly, we have the public list article find by publish boolean publish, return the article repository, find by publish. So this will just find all the articles filtered by publish status, and it will return a list of articles matching the publish flag. And that's it for all the code.
Okay. Going through all of your code, one thing I could say is your explanation was so clear, honestly. I'm not even a debugger cook at this point. Like, I'm not expecting you to use a debugger the way you explain it here. I followed all your steps. I didn't get confused, honestly. So, honestly, good job on your Spring Boot REST API, the way you implemented your, your annotations, the packages you're making use of, your code as well. Honestly, being honest with you, shows a solid principle, including the CRUD endpoints, so those CRUD functionalities, the create, read, update, and delete, as well as making use of the database. that was actually good. And also implementing the Insomnia over there for API testing, the H2 console for database verification. From my opinion, it actually demonstrates a professional development light. So, all in all, Katie, your presentation was